Last election, Rick Casson had 67% of the vote in a five-way race. That is unheard of.
Now that you're ready to retire, I know that Janine's going to end up with twice as much man, but only half as much money. So you're going to have to work really hard to keep her in the manner that she's used to, Rick.
I learned lots of things from Rick. I learned the words to way too many country songs.
I have learned to respect him as a human being, independently of politics.
I've come to enjoy country music. I've learned from him that you do treat everybody the same.
And I don't know any better tribute to anyone after 14 years representing a community in Parliament than to be able to say that.
There are very, very few politicians that I would consider working for, but Rick was the only one that made it so darn easy.
I've got big shoes to fill, and I do.
Thank you, Rick, for all the good work that you've done. Now I can tell some stories.
You want to hear about the good old days? Well, we've had, Rick and I have had a great time together over the 13 years I was working for him. Had to do when Rick was elected to the Reform Party.
Ray Speaker, who was the successful Reform candidate in the 93 election, had retired. Rick Casson was known to be Reform sympathetic and had some political experience. And went back and forth making informal overtures and asking him to seriously consider it, and he eventually did and put his nomination in, and handily won. At that point he was seeking a campaign manager. He asked me if I'd be interested. I said yes, and so I became his campaign manager in the 97 election.
For the constituency of Lethbridge, MP-elect for the Reform Party.
We kept this thing up top of the road all the time. We had never said one derogatory thing about anybody. And that's...
You were a wild reformer. You were going to change the world.
It was interesting to watch him as he matured in his role. He went to Ottawa as the new kid on the block with the Reform Party.
And the fact remains, Mr. Speaker, that the tobacco companies are huge, powerful forces.
He became quite a competent politician, and I think he really quite enjoyed his job.
One of his first roles was the critic of the environment. He took it very seriously.
Sydney residents have experienced a 130% increase in the rate of stomach cancer.
And he visited some of the sites across Canada that were certainly critical issues.
What would happen if that oozing mass of filth were on the front lawn of Parliament Hill or on a certain lawn in Shawinigan?
We have contributed funds to this process, which is working to resolve this very serious issue.
Did a great role of actually identifying the issues.
For an elected, equal, and effective Senate, why the leader of the opposition campaigned against the Charlottetown Accord.
And I always thought that John Chrétien was a smart man, but he was also crafty.
Well, Chrétien was fun, right? Still have the Shawinigan handshake picture.
And he wouldn't hesitate to run over somebody if it suited his purposes.
A man with a folksy, sometimes
Will you get out of my way, please? Careful, escape.
Edgy charm, but a consummate politician.
The results proved that we had a far better leader than the Liberals ever did.
Since the government has chosen to exit the 20th century not with a bang but with a whimper, it is my intention to present an alternative set of principles for directing the legislative program of the government, and an alternative vision for Canada in the 21st century, alternatives which I believe are in keeping with the deepest convictions and hopes of Canadians.
Usually it is a rubber chicken dinner, but when we come to the West, we have beef. Sometimes we have pepper steaks, and
when asked about it, Jean Chrétien said, "For me, I put pepper on my plate."
And the only thing more sickening than the Prime Minister's dirty little joke is the fact that 1,000 Liberal Party faithful clapped and laughed.
It gives opposition parties the opportunity to, you know, have the theatrics that they like to have for a question period.
So my question is to the Prime Minister, and it's very simple. Did he give John Carl the green light and order the clampdown at APEC? Yes or no?
As everyone in this House knows, there's an inquiry going on in Vancouver. The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. The only thing we want to hear the Solicitor General say when he stands up is, "I resign."
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Carl will be a witness. He volunteered to be a witness.
So all governments give their opponents opportunities to score political points.